The night I decided to say it out loud, I'd been composing my speech for months. I was 22, unsure of myself but still certain of my calling. The family gathered around my parents' long wooden table in Lisbon, the scent of roasted sardines and lemon wafting from the kitchen. Sunlight was dying through the window, leaving mosaics of gold and blue on the tiled countertop. Around me the voices mingled, my father Porto with his worn mechanic's hands, my mother, the reliable warmth in her smile, my sister Mariana telling stories with her hands. My aunts and uncles, faces lined by laughter and bitterness, clustered together for their monthly dinner as if proximity could banish loneliness. I waited for dessert, a habit perhaps of surrendering to ritual before shattering it. When the custard tarts were set on the table and the conversation exploded into the usual friendly chaos, I cleared my throat. They looked at me, a pause settling. I saw the glint of expectation in my father's eyes, like he hoped I'd announce medical school or maybe a promotion at the grocery store. "I'm moving to Porto next week," I began. "I accepted an offer to join a research lab. I want to build artificial intelligence, maybe even start my own company one day." The words dropped into the room like a foreign object. Instantly, conversation slowed, faces shifting from open to quizzical. My uncle Rui, always quick with a joke, spat wine into his napkin and snorted. "Artificial intelligence. Someone's been watching too many Hollywood movies," he said. "If you want a job with machines, fix a car. At least those engines are real." Laughter scattered around the table, not cruel at first, but dismissive. My mother tried to save me with her soft voice. "He's always had ideas, Paulo. Our Miguel is a thinker." But my father's face closed off. "We don't need dreamers, we need steady work. You want to run off and play with computers, but who will pay the rent? Who will look after us when you're broke and back home?" His words hit me sharp and bright, like glass shards dug into my side. I looked to Mariana, hoping for sense. She shrugged, not unsympathetic but tired, eyes rolling as if this was another childish phase. Only my grandmother, silent and bird-boned at the end of the table, watched me with a gaze both heavy and light, knowing and weary, as if she'd seen all this before. "I don't want to fix cars," I said. "I want to make things that think I can do it. People are already building things that learn and solve problems. In a few years you'll see, machines will help us in ways we can't imagine." Paulo's fist thudded once on the table. "Life is not a fantasy, son. If you chase smoke, that's all you'll get. Remember that when you're hungry." Dinner ended soon after, the running commentary drifting behind me as I slipped from the table. The next morning, when I wheeled my battered suitcase down the tiled hallway, my mother hugged me goodbye, but my father stayed planted behind his coffee mug, refusing to look up. The train ride to Porto was a different world entirely. I dunked my head against the smudged window, watching telephone poles race past. My fear was a cold swirl in my stomach, mixing with anger. I hated that they wouldn't even try to understand. And yet, when the reality of my singular journey pressed in, I wanted nothing more than to see Lisbon fade into the distance, so my shame could disappear with it. Porto was misty, elegant, and nothing like home. The university labs, damp-smelling and underfunded, were a haven for oddballs and dreamers. I was drawn to them. My supervisor, Dr. Vasquez, was a wiry man with quick hands and the gaunt, caffeinated patience only true obsessives possess. I slept on a mattress in a windowless rented room, typing code late into the night, chasing patterns in data. We built simple things at first, language models stuttering through Portuguese, vision systems that could tell a bus from a bicycle. Whenever I felt myself sinking, I went to the Dom Luiz I Bridge and watched boats drift under the iron arches. The river below was always moving, sweeping dead leaves, shadows, and the city's ghosts out to the Atlantic. Sometimes I called home and tried to sound cheerful. My mother, always gentle, would relay news. Paulo was tired, that was all. Mariana got her first teaching job. They all wanted to know when I'd come back to visit. I swallowed the bitterness and told her, "Not yet, I'm close to something. I think I could actually make it this time." Behind her patience, I felt the weight of their collective smirk from afar. AI engineer, they used the title like a punchline, yet the anger was already hardening into clarity. I would force them to see. Years ground by in slow, unglamorous grit, I scrabbled for grant money and contracts. For every minor breakthrough, there were 10 setbacks, crashed servers, garbled results, and papers submitted only to be rejected, cold as stone, by indifferent reviewers. On holidays, I made excuses for not coming home, too busy, always too busy. I envied those whose families held applause for them on faith, but at night, when sleep eluded me, I replayed my father's words. The sting kept me upright through caffeine-pickled afternoons, forced my fingers to continue tapping out neural nets and code, searching for the one architecture that would finally break through. And then, almost quietly, I found it. It was a pattern in medical data, hidden in a mass of numbers, something no one else had noticed. The model I helped build could spot heart murmurs in children long before a stethoscope would ever find them, giving months of advance warning. Hospitals piloted it, results rolled in, and the hush of skepticism broke. My name was on the lead author line. Startup founders cornered me at conferences in Munich and Montreal, and investors, cocky in their Anglo-Saxon certainty, circled for a taste. My team, scrappy, exhausted, already drunk on optimism, launched a company. I called it Olisipo AI, twin nods to Lisbon's ancient roots and to a future nobody in that family kitchen had imagined for me. The first rounds of meetings were a test of nerves, an initiation into a world where money clings to the scent of innovation. Doors opened, sometimes grudgingly and sometimes not at all. I was too young, too foreign, too hungry. Yet in those rooms I heard only echoes of the family dinner, Rui's mocking laugh, Paulo's boulder-heavy silence. My anger became an anchor, my serenity a weapon, practiced and polished until it gleamed. Within 2 years, Olisipo's software was installed in hospitals across Iberia. I made the Forbes Europe list, an accolade briefly satisfying, if only to see the skepticism melt a little in people's eyes. But even as the world noticed, I stayed away, keeping Lisbon in the rear view. I pictured my family at the old table. In my mind, time stood still. Part of me feared coming back with proof, afraid it would feel cheap, performative, or that none of it would matter anyway. One September, almost a decade after I'd left, Mariana called. "Come home for Papa's birthday," she said. "Just once, you're a ghost to us." I hesitated. My panic was involuntary, ridiculous, a grown man successful by any measure, still shivering at the thought of their indifference. But her voice cut through my doubts. "I'm proud of you, Miguel, even if he never says it." The weight of unsaid things hung between us. I agreed. I returned to Lisbon quietly, taking the early train, my overnight bag and laptop packed tight. The city was as I remembered, small bakeries opening in pale dawn, tramlines crackling, red tile roofs battered by the salt wind. Old men hunched over espresso in corner cafes, discussing football and government as if life hinged on both in equal measure. At the house, sunlight played over the garden wall. I stood for a moment, then rang the bell. My mother swung the door open, arms flung wide. "Miguel," she wrapped me up in her arms, scent of flower and basil filling my head, and for a moment I was a child again, before dreams and bruises complicated the air. Inside, the room seemed smaller, familiar chairs worn and patched. My father sat near the window, glasses low on his nose, fiddling with a half-finished crossword. The lines in his face had deepened, but his frame was somehow smaller. When he looked up, I saw a flicker of something careful and deliberated in his eyes. "Miguel," he said, as if testing the word on his tongue. We were silent for a moment before my mother ushered me to the kitchen. Old rhythms resumed, her working, me chopping vegetables, the scrape of knives on rustic wood. We did not talk of work or computers. Instead, we talked about the rain and how the old apricot tree may not survive this year. When the afternoon faded down and the house filled with relatives, I became the point of curiosity. Rui arrived, his laughter louder than ever. "There he is, the conqueror returns. So how are the robots?" "Still trying to replace us lazy Portuguese," he elbowed my cousin. Others snickered. I smiled, but my jaw ached. I had rehearsed this moment, but it didn't thaw the old fear balled tight in my stomach. Later, as the dinner plates were cleared, Mariana caught my eye. She smiled, encouraging. My mother nodded, pressing a glass of wine into my hand. I stood by the kitchen arch, steadying myself against the hum of voices. "There's something I want to share," I said. "Something I've worked on all these years. It's helping children in hospitals, even here in Lisbon." The table grew quiet, eyes flickered up. I pulled out my laptop, connecting it to the old Toshiba TV mounted above the sideboard. I launched Olisipo's demonstration app, clicking through slides, each graphic showing how our model detected subtle heart rhythms, children's files anonymized but real. "These are lives we've helped save, not guesses, measured diagnostics. The system learns from millions of patients so doctors can predict illness before a child gets sick." Silence. Then I pressed play on a short video, a recording sent by the chief of pediatrics at Santa Maria Hospital. She spoke in clipped, grateful tones, overlaying images of the children, white bedsheets and tiny fists, parents weeping, doctors nodding at screens. The weight of the moment pressed in, but my voice was steady when I said, I wanted you to see for yourselves. It's real, all those years it was for this. In the hush I watched the doubters, my uncle's mouth hung open. Mariana wiped at her eyes, there was awe and a touch of confusion, but most of all I searched for my father. Paulo's eyes glistened. His jaw worked silently as if chewing words too dense to swallow. I waited, chest aching. Finally he pushed himself slowly to his feet. You did this, you built this. His voice broke somewhere between pride and pain. I did, with my team. I couldn't help it. I held his gaze, refusing to look away this time. He rounded the table, rough hands reaching. For the first time he embraced me fully, arms tight, his cheeks scratchy with tears neither of us acknowledged. I was wrong, he said, voice thick. I was so afraid you'd lose yourself. I didn't see the world had changed and you were building the future. Forgive me, son. The others joined in, claps on the back, laughter breaking loose, skepticism melting into celebration. Even Rui grinned sheepishly. Next time my heart pounds after a Benfica match, I'll know who to call. The room pulsed with warmth, my anger gone at last, replaced by a depth of serenity I'd only glimpsed before. My mother pressed her hand to my face, joyful and relieved. Mariana slid her arm through mine and whispered, I always believed, you know, even when I didn't know what believing looked like. That night the old house rang with new stories, no longer jokes about robot overlords but talk of hope and healing. Outside, Lisbon's lights glittered along the Tagus, immutable and eternal. Long after the others went to bed, I sat on the back steps, air tinged with salt and fig leaves. My father joined me quietly, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. We live our lives thinking the world is a fixed thing, he said softly, but you changed it, not just for yourself, for us all. I smiled, tiredness rolling off me like a loose cloak. You once called me a dreamer. You weren't wrong, I just needed to make the dream useful. His eyes glimmered with pride and regret woven together. We finished the coffee in silence, surrounded by the hush of homecoming, anger spent, serenity earned, and the gentle, pulsing wonder of being seen at last.